Ne.
Before I die, listen to me carefully. This calabash has fed us, protected us, and buried our enemies. But it is hungry now. It has always been hungry. Promise me, Bath, do not use it. Do not even look at it with desire in your heart. Bury it, deep, where the roots of the Iroko tree can hold it down.
Promise me.
In the village of Nwewi, tucked between red clay roads and cassava farms, there lived an old woman named Mama Chidimma. People called her many things. Some called her a healer. Some crossed the road when they saw her coming. Children whispered that her eyes could see what yours could not, that her silence carried more threat than another man's shout. But the truth, as truth always insists on being, was simpler than gossip. Mama Chidimma was a woman who had been hurt so deeply, so many times, that she had learned to protect herself with everything this earth offered. The visible, the invisible, and the things that exist in the space between. She raised 2 girls, Adaeze, the first, born with her fists open, as if already offering the world something. She was the kind of child who would sweep the compound without being asked, who would share her last piece of fried fish without thinking twice, who would sit beside a crying neighbor and say nothing, just be there. Because sometimes presence is more powerful than words. Adaeze grew up with patience the way a mango tree grows, slowly, quietly, until suddenly you look and there is shade where there was none before. Ngozi, the second, born with her jaw tight, as if the world owed her something from the very beginning. She was not wicked, not at first. She was just watching, always watching. Watching what others had, watching what she didn't. Ngozi was clever, beautiful in the sharp way that makes people stare, and she knew it. But underneath the cleverness was a hollow place, the kind that forms in children who feel overlooked. And that hollow place grew quietly as she did. They loved each other. That is important to understand. Adaeze loved Ngozi with the kind of love that doesn't need the other person to be perfect. And Ngozi loved Adaeze too. But her love was tangled up with comparison, with wanting, with the constant ache of measuring herself against her sister and always feeling she came up short. Mama Chidimma watched both of them. She taught them what she could. How to cook, how to tend the farm, how to read people's faces, how to survive. She taught Adaeze that kindness was not weakness. She tried to teach Ngozi that enough was a place you chose, not a place that found you. Ngozi did not learn that lesson. When Mama Chidimma was 81 years old, her body began to do what old bodies do. She started calling people by names they didn't recognize. She stopped eating at noon. She would sit in her wooden chair by the door and stare at the horizon like she was reading a letter no one else could see. One night, she called Ngozi to her bedside, not Adaeze. Some say she chose Ngozi because she saw the hollow place and thought that knowledge would fill it. Some say she chose her because Adaeze would have obeyed, and Mama Chidimma, even in dying, needed someone to fight the story she was about to close. Nobody knows for certain. The ancestors do not explain their logic. Come close, the old woman rasped. Ngozi knelt by her mat. Mama Chidimma reached beneath her sleeping mat and pulled out a calabash, no bigger than a man's head, sealed with black cloth and a cord of twisted palm fiber. The markings on its skin were old, the kind of old that makes your tongue go dry. This calabash, Mama Chidimma said slowly, is why your enemies never finished me. This calabash is why nobody came to burn this house when they burned the others. It has power, Ngozi. Real power. It can bring wealth, it can break sickness, it can turn a man's heart in any direction you point it. Ngozi's eyes lit up. But listen to me, the old woman continued, her voice dropping like a stone into deep water. Power like this is not free. It feeds. The longer you use it, the more it demands. And when it is ready for its final meal, it will ask you for the blood of an innocent. And if you cannot pay, it will take you instead. That is why I called you. Not to use it, to bury it. Dig deep under the old Iroko tree behind this compound and put it in the ground. That is the only way to end it cleanly. She made Ngozi promise. 3 mornings later, Mama Chidinma closed her eyes and did not open them again. Adaeze wept openly. Ngozi cried too, but later that night, alone in the room, she reached under the old woman's sleeping mat. Her hand found the calabash. She wrapped it in an old cloth and hid it in her grandmother's wooden chest, under layers of old wrappers and forgotten things. She told herself she would bury it tomorrow, next week, after she had thought about it more. She never buried it. Years passed the way they do, not asking permission. Adaeze moved to the city of Onitsha. She started small, selling fabric at the market, waking before sunrise, sleeping after midnight. She was honest with her customers, fair with her suppliers, generous when she could afford to be, and disciplined when she could not. People trusted her. Trust is the only currency that compounds without losing value. She met Mbeka. Mbeka was not rich when they met. He was an engineer with more ambition than money, but he had something rarer. He was a good man. He knew how to hold a woman's sadness without trying to fix it into something more comfortable for himself. He made Adaeze laugh. He helped her carry things, not just physically, but in all the ways that matter. When she was building her fabric shop, he was beside her laying the shelves. When their children came, 2 of them, a boy named Chukwuemeka and a girl named Somtochukwu, he changed diapers without being asked, cooked when she was tired, showed up in the way that makes a house feel like a home. They were not perfect. No marriage that is real ever is. But they were happy. Genuinely, quietly, deeply happy. Ngozi was still in the village, in Mama Chidinma's old house. Adaeze called her often, sent money when she could. When the fabric business began to grow, she called Ngozi and said, "Come, move to Onitsha, live with us. There is room and there is love." Ngozi always had an excuse. "I'm not ready. The house needs someone. Next month, maybe." The truth was that watching Adaeze's life from a distance was painful. But being inside it, being a guest in the very life she wanted for herself, that was a different kind of pain entirely. And Ngozi had been sitting alone in that old house with the calabash in a wooden chest, and on some nights, she opened it just to look, just to think. The first time Ngozi came to visit, she came alone. She dressed well, smiled wide, played with the children, but her eyes were measuring things. The size of the house, the warmth between Mbeka and Adaeze, the way Mbeka came home and kissed his wife without thinking about it, the way a man does when affection has become a habit he cannot imagine breaking. Ngozi's jaw tightened. On the second day of the visit, Mbeka was cleaning the kitchen after dinner. Ngozi watched him and made a sound, that particular Igbo woman sound, the one that is not quite a word but says everything. "Ngozi?" Adaeze looked at her. "Nothing, it is just..." Ngozi shook her head. "A man cleaning pots in his own house?" The room changed temperature. Mbeka kept cleaning. He was the kind of man who didn't hear those things or pretended not to, which amounted to the same mercy. Later, Adaeze pulled Ngozi aside, into their bedroom, away from the children. "Don't do that, please. Not in front of him. He is my husband. He helps because he wants to. This is our home, not a performance." Ngozi looked at her sister, really looked at her, and something flickered in her eyes that was almost regret. Almost. She said, "I understand." She didn't. For the rest of the visit, she said small things to Mbeka, subtle things. "You work so hard, you must be tired. Why are you still doing this?" The kind of words designed to make a good man feel foolish for being good. Mbeka listened politely and continued being himself. When Ngozi returned to the village, she sat in the dark and opened the calabash. 6 months later, Ngozi arrived at Adaeze's door with 2 bags and a wooden chest. "I'm tired of being alone," she said. "I want to be with family." Adaeze held her sister and wept with happiness. She did not know that inside the wooden chest, beneath the folded wrappers and the old photographs, the calabash was breathing. At first, nothing seemed wrong. Ngozi cooked, she helped with the children, she laughed at dinner. But at night, when the house was asleep, she would open the chest, unwrap the calabash, and speak to it in a voice barely above a whisper. She did not ask for money. She did not ask for land. She asked for Mbeka. The calabash, as it always does, answered with a price. First, simple things. Let the woman disrespect her husband. Let her tongue forget its softness. Ngozi agreed. She spoke something into the calabash. She cut her finger and let 3 drops fall inside. 3 days later, Adaeze, sweet, patient Adaeze, who had never raised her voice without cause, looked at her husband over a small disagreement about the children's school fees and said something sharp, something that sat in the room like broken glass after the conversation moved on. Mbeka was quiet that night. When the peace began to return between them, Ngozi went back to the calabash. More, she told it. The calabash told her to bring a piece of Adaeze's hair, a piece of Imeka's clothing, things that belonged to their bond. She found them. She complied. Then came the night she touched Imeka's arm while he was sitting alone in the parlor. Her hand lingered. Her voice dropped. She looked at him the way a woman looks at a man she has already decided upon. Imeka stood up. "Ngozi," he said, and his voice carried no anger, just the clear, immovable firmness of a man who knows what he has and refuses to insult it. "You are my wife's sister. You will always be welcome in this house. But what is in your eyes right now, I cannot see it. I will not see it." He walked to the bedroom and closed the door. Ngozi sat in the dark parlor and shook with humiliation, then with fury. She went to the calabash and poured herself into it. Adaeze began to fall sick. Nothing the doctors could name, just a slow fading, like a fire that runs low on wood. She slept more, smiled less. The children cried for their mother and found her barely present. Imeka, under the calabash's invisible weight, began to drift. He stopped coming home early. He forgot to kiss her. He would sit in the parlor where Ngozi was and talk for hours about nothing. And he wouldn't know why, couldn't explain it, felt confused by himself, but couldn't stop. The calabash had begun its work. The house that was once warm grew cold. Ngozi watched the marriage bend. She watched Imeka forget. She watched her sister wither in the back room and told herself it was almost over. Soon he would look at Adaeze and see only a stranger. Soon. But the bond between Imeka and Adaeze was made of something the calabash was struggling to dissolve. 20 years of genuine love, of choosing each other in the ordinary, unremarkable moments that are, in truth, the sacred ones. They were bent, they were not broken. Ngozi went to the calabash one final night. Her voice was desperate, raw. "Finish it," she told it. "End her." The calabash told her what it needed. The blood of a newborn. Even Ngozi went silent. She sat with that request for 3 days. She told herself she wouldn't. Then she thought of Imeka. Then she remembered Adaeze's face, not sick, but glowing, happy, loved, and the hollow place inside her swallowed her last hesitation whole. On the 4th night, she went 3 compounds down the red road. A neighbor had delivered a baby 7 days before. The night was deep and the family was sleeping. Ngozi moved silently. She found the child. She did not make it to the door. The mother awoke with that instinct that belongs only to new mothers, that animal alertness that does not sleep even when the body does. She screamed, The compound erupted. Neighbors came running. Torches, voices, hands grabbing Ngozi before she could run. "What are you doing? What did you want with this child? Speak!" And Ngozi, cornered, trembling, the weight of everything she had done collapsing on her all at once, broke. She confessed, not calmly, in pieces, the way the truth comes when it has been held too long. She told them about the Calabash, about the grandmother, about Adaeze, about what she had done to the marriage, about the sickness, about Emeka. The crowd walked her home. They gathered in front of Adaeze's house, neighbors, elders, a torchlit circle of village justice. Inside the house, Emeka stood in the parlor looking confused, like a man waking from a dream he cannot remember. Something was clearing. Something was lifting. He looked at his hands. He looked toward the bedroom where his wife lay sick and felt a grief so sudden and so real that he sat down on the floor. He had not sat with her in weeks. The crowd demanded the calabash. Ngozi went to the wooden chest. She unwrapped it slowly, her hands shaking. When she lifted it, when it was exposed to the night air and the eyes of all those people, the calabash seemed to exhale, an old, dark, finished sound. And then it turned on her. Because that is what power built on hunger does when it can no longer feed. It eats what is nearest. Ngozi dropped the calabash and screamed. Her eyes went wide and she began to laugh, the wrong kind of laugh, the kind that is not connected to anything funny. And then she ran, out through the compound gate, down the red road, into the dark, screaming and laughing and gone. Adaeze, in the back bedroom, sat up. She breathed deeply. For the first time in months, she breathed fully. Color began to return to her face. She called her husband's name. Emeka came running. The chief priest came the next morning, an old man named Ezeudo, who carried his knowledge the way old men carry their age, heavily but without complaint. He looked at the calabash for a long time without touching it. Then he called for the elders. They gathered at the base of the old Iroko tree behind Mama Chidima's compound, the same tree the old woman had named when she was dying. They dug deep. The chief priest spoke over the calabash in a language older than the village's name. He wrapped it in white cloth and new palm fiber and returned it to the earth. When the last handful of red soil covered it, the Iroko tree seemed to settle, as though something that had been leaning against it had finally let go. Ngozi was found 2 days later on the edge of the market, sitting in the mud, talking to people who were not there. The village brought her home. She did not recognize her sister for a long time, but Adaeze sat beside her every day. She brought her food. She combed her hair. She sang the same songs Mama Chidima used to sing when they were small girls in that red clay yard. Some people asked Adaeze how she could do it, how she could love a woman who had tried to kill her. She always gave the same answer. The calabash did not make her. It only fed what was already hungry. And hunger, real hunger, is not an enemy. It is a wound. You do not walk away from a wounded person. You stay. In time, Ngozi's eyes cleared. Not all the way, not all at once, but enough. Emeka rebuilt slowly. Adaeze rebuilt with him. Their children grew. The fabric shop grew. The house grew warm again. And in the village, when mothers tucked their children in at night, they told this story, not to frighten them, but to ask them a question. What is the hollow place inside you? What will you let feed it? Because the calabash is not always made of clay. Sometimes it is made of envy. Sometimes it is made of loneliness. Sometimes it is made of the silence between two sisters when one of them needed to speak and didn't. The Iroko tree stands there still. If you press your ear to its bark on a quiet night, some say you can hear it, holding. This is the story of Adaeze and Ngozi. May the one who has ears hear. May the one who has a sister call her today. Nke abwoko. This is truth.